Your government will evacuate you in a crisis, right? That's what most people believe. What's happening in the Middle East right now shattered that belief for citizens of dozens of countries simultaneously. Right now, the US Embassy in Abu Dhabi is closed. The consulate in Dubai is closed. The United Kingdom had 138,000 British nationals register for help and organized 3 charter flights to evacuate them. Canada scrambled to arrange flights for 2,000 of its stranded citizens. France had a chartered Air France flight forced to turn back by missile fire near Dubai. And over 36,000 Americans have already evacuated from the Middle East, and most of them did it entirely on their own. So, first, what actually happens when a government evacuates its citizens, and why the word evacuation itself is dangerously misleading. Second, what it costs, and I don't just mean money. Third, why your passport, not your residency, is the only thing that determines whether or not you get on that plane at all. I'm going to focus primarily on the United States system because that's where the deepest research and the most dramatic stories are, but the core principles apply to all countries. Your government's obligation or desire to rescue you is far smaller than you may think. The United States itself has required its citizens to pay for their own evacuations since World War II. Not new, not political. Congress formalized this in 2002, and every administration since has enforced it. U.S. law allows the State Department to use emergency funds to help evacuate citizens when their lives are endangered by war, civil unrest, or natural disaster. But the law says that this help must be provided on a reimbursable basis to the maximum extent practicable. Reimbursable to the maximum extent practicable. Now, before you board a government coordinated flight, you will sign a DS 5528 form, the Evacuee Manifest and Promissory Note, a legally binding agreement to repay the U.S. government for your transportation. The amount you pay is based on the full fare economy ticket on the date immediately before the crisis started. It's not a discount fare, it's a full fare at crisis pricing one way. Emirates tickets during the current crisis hit over $5,000. Payment for this is due within 30 days. You can apply to pay it in installments, but if you don't pay, the consequences include denial of your future U.S. passport. So, you're standing on a tarmac with your family. Drones are hitting buildings in the city behind you. You sign the form, or you don't get on the plane. Now, in Afghanistan in 2021, the State Department initially announced a $2,000 per person evacuation cost. They did reverse it under political pressure. In Lebanon in 2006, they planned to charge evacuees but dropped it after bipartisan congressional pressure. The coronavirus evacuations from Morocco, citizens were billed $1,485. Now, more recently in Israel 2023, charter flights to Athens and Frankfurt, citizens signed promissory notes. Some didn't even have a price listed. But the mechanism is always the same. The political response has varied a bit, but the law itself has not changed in over 80 years. Now, in the current year, the United States launched combat operations against Iran. Iran hit back with over 1,800 missiles and drones targeting the UAE alone. Dubai International Airport, the busiest international airport on the planet, with 95 million passengers per year, suspended all flights. Abu Dhabi's airport was hit by a drone attack on March 1st, with 1 person killed and 7 injured. Drone strikes have hit several residential buildings in Dubai, a fuel tank near the airport, and the attacks are still happening as of this recording. The U.S. Embassy in Abu Dhabi is closed. The consulate in Dubai is closed. All routine consular services are suspended. Non-emergency U.S. government employees were ordered to leave on March 3rd. The United Kingdom closed its embassy too. The State Department's own travel advisory says, and I'm reading this directly, have a plan to depart in an emergency that does not depend on U.S. government help. An American accountant named Nick Cariano was stuck in Abu Dhabi. He did everything right. He enrolled in the STEP program, the State Department's Smart Traveler Enrollment Program. He got daily messages from the embassy. Every single day, at least twice a day, the same thing. They said they were monitoring the situation, shelter in place. We care about your safety. But on day 3 of the conflict, the State Department sent out a phone number for evacuation support. Cariano called it. A woman answered. She was a travel agent in Texas. She had no idea why the government was giving out her number. She told them, "We don't handle that. You're going to have to find your own way home." Sorry. Meanwhile, the State Department had authorized $40 million for charter flights from Abu Dhabi and Dubai to European cities. These flights began on March 4th. But the communication failed so completely that those flights were running at less than 40% of capacity. They were half empty. Americans were sheltering in place thinking that no options existed, while these planes were leaving the country with less than half the people they could have taken. And here's the part that I wasn't expecting when I started researching this. While the US Embassy was closed and Americans were being told to call a travel agent in Texas, the UAE government, a foreign government, was actually helping to pay for stranded Americans' hotel rooms and 3 meals a day at the hotel restaurant with laundry service, and they even offered to cover the entire cost of medical care and medical and mental health counseling for stranded travelers. Now, back to Nick Cariano, and these are his words, not mine. The US government did nothing for us. The UAE government showed the highest level of kindness and hospitality I've ever experienced. Similarly, a dual American Jordanian citizen named Erica Presley reported the same experience during the Jordan evacuations. She was told she was on her own. This isn't one bad interaction. This was the system. Now, the word evacuation makes people think of helicopters and Marines. That's not usually what it looks like. You don't actually even go home. The government flies you to a neighboring country or to a nearby safe location. The State Department's own language says that your final destination is rarely the United States. The United Kingdom flew its nationals to London Stansted via Muscat, Oman, nearly 24 hours behind schedule. U.S. charter flights went to European cities. Once that flight lands, you are responsible for your own onward travel and accommodation. At crisis pricing, all last minute, with all of the hotels in the city possibly booked solid, with your credit cards potentially frozen from fraud alerts because you've been making unusual purchases in unusual locations. In country transportation to the departure point is generally also not provided. You have to get yourself to the airport, and pets generally cannot come. The government cannot guarantee your safety during the evacuation itself. Emergency medical care is also not included in part of this ordeal. There are companies that specialize in assisting customers in exactly these kind of situations: war zones, political instability, crisis extraction. They do exist, but that's a whole different set of expenses and preparations. If you want me to make a video investigating these companies and what they actually offer, let me know in the comments. So, you might be wondering if this really does apply to you. And I would tell you, if you travel internationally at all, yes, it absolutely applies to you, regardless of what passport you hold. Obviously, the degree of your exposure will depend on how and where you travel. If you take a vacation abroad once or twice a year, your window of risk is small, but it's not zero. Dubai was full of tourists from every continent on February 27th. By March 1st, they were sheltering in place while drones hit the airport. If you're an expat, a digital nomad, a remote worker, or someone that's built a life abroad with property, business, kids, schools, your exposure is permanent. The UAE had hundreds of thousands of expats from the United States, the United Kingdom, India, the Philippines, every corner of the world who woke up to these drone strikes and closed embassies. These were people with mortgages in Dubai and office leases in Dubai, paying school tuition in Dubai. Their plan B was not a return flight, it was their entire life. And if you're someone holding a foreign residency permit, a golden visa, a temporary residency, a permanent residency, and you think that gives you options in a crisis, I need you to hear this real clearly. It does not. So what can you actually do about it? Other than avoiding perpetually war-torn areas, there's no way to predict which country might be next. Nobody saw Dubai coming, the most globally connected city on the planet, getting hit with 1,800 missiles and drones in just 3 weeks ago. The answer isn't necessarily about picking the right country. It's about being ready wherever you are. Smart traveler basics. Know where the nearest airport is to you and how far you are from it. Know an alternative route to the airport in case the main road is jammed with everyone else getting the same idea that you did. Keep cash in hand in local currency, and as well some dollars or euros, because when every system is overloaded simultaneously, ATMs go down and card readers stop working. Keep your passport on you, not in a hotel safe that you can't access during a 3 a.m. evacuation. Keep your phone charged. Download offline maps of the city that you're in, because if cell networks fail under a surge in demand, you'll want to be able to make sure you can get where you're going. Additionally, have a plan for your family, not a vague idea, an actual plan. If you're traveling with a spouse or children, everyone needs to know the meeting point and a backup meeting point, as well as who is responsible for what. If you have family back home, they should know your location, your flight details, and have a way to reach you that doesn't depend on cell service. And be sure to register with your country's traveler enrollment program before you travel, not during the crisis. For Americans, that's STEP. The United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and most Western nations have equivalent systems. It takes 2 minutes, and it's the bare minimum you can do to stay informed. But none of that matters if you can't get on the plane. And who gets on that plane comes down to one document. Every government's evacuation policy draws the same line. Only citizens board. Non-citizens do not. The State Department's own policy says it generally does not evacuate people or provide departure assistance to non-citizens. A UAE golden visa does not get you on a US government charter, nor does it get you on a UAE charter returning to the UAE from another location. A Panama-friendly nations visa does not get you on a charter that the Panamanian government has booked for its citizen. The same goes for Paraguay, Mexico. All of these countries, every single one of them will only allow passport holders, citizens, to board during a crisis. So this isn't unique to the United States. The United Kingdom evacuated British nationals. France evacuated French nationals. Canada evacuated Canadians. Every country draws the same line at the same place, citizen or not. Going back to the Wuhan evacuations in 2020, 39 countries ran evacuation flights out of China. Dual nationals who held passports from two countries had two lifelines, not just one. France, Germany, and the United Kingdom ran joint EU citizen evacuation flights. If you missed your country's flight, your second passport could get you on another country's flight instead. But it got worse after that. Families were literally split apart. China does not recognize dual nationality. American fathers in Wuhan with Chinese wives were told that the US charter would take them and their American passport children, but not their spouse. A British mother was told her 3-year-old son could not be evacuated because he also held Chinese citizenship under Chinese law, which only permitted him one passport. In uncertain times, a second citizenship is not a luxury. In a crisis, it is the difference between one government's response helping you or two, between one charter flight or two, between being stuck or being able to have options. Whether or not you have a pathway to that second passport should be at minimum a part of your global planning, if not your outright goal. Now, figuring out which citizenship pathway fits your life, whether it's through ancestry, naturalization, or investment, is exactly the conversation we have in our strategy calls. Or you can grab one of our do-yourself guides as well. Those links are in the descriptions. Okay? So the uncomfortable truth here, though, is those government charter flights out of the UAE, they were available to people who had filled a specific crisis intake form online. Many citizens didn't even know that form existed. The State Department spent $40 million on flights that left more than half empty while people sat in their hotel rooms thinking that there were no options. Not even because help wasn't available, because the system that was supposed to tell them about it failed. And even the people who made it onto those flights, they weren't flown home. They landed in European cities and were on their own from there. They had to pay for their own onward travel, their own accommodation, their own booking at whatever price was available at that time in cities where the hotels may have already been full. Remember, there is no law that requires any government to evacuate you. The U.S. statute says the Secretary of State can help, not that it must, only that it can. The State Department's own website says this, and I'm reading directly. Sometimes situations are so dangerous that we are not able to help organize any departure options. This is not the failure of one president or one political party. This is the system working as it was designed 80 years ago. It was designed to facilitate your departure if conditions permit and resources allow. Those are two enormous caveats that most people won't discover until they're sheltering in place watching drones hit the building next door. Now, the pattern worldwide is that things are getting more volatile, not less. The UAE was supposed to be the safe, stable, ultra-modern hub of the Middle East. If this can happen in Dubai, it can happen anywhere you've built a life abroad. Lebanon, 2006, Haiti, 2010, Libya, 2011, Yemen, 2015, Afghanistan, 2021, Israel, 2023. France had a chartered evacuation flight turned back by missile fire just a few weeks ago. Now the entire Gulf has erupted. The pattern is the same every time. The crisis hits faster than any government can respond. Citizens are surprised that help isn't on the way like they expected. And afterward, everyone says they'll be better prepared next time. Don't be the person that worries about saying that after the fact. The best time to build your emergency plan is before it happens. The second best time is today. Evaluate your passport portfolio, and if you need help mapping out a second citizenship, a diversification strategy, or just a clear-eyed plan for what to do when the world shifts under your feet, links to our guides and strategy calls are in the descriptions. We build plans that don't fall apart every time a country closes its airspace. Remember, the right information makes it all possible. I'm Brad with Evolution Expats. I'll see you in our next video.